I'm Dr. Chamonix Blanche, ex-corporate and academical, turned CEO and board member of several companies and mother of 4 little extraordinary kids. But it wasn't that long ago that I lacked the confidence, the know-how, and the time to focus on designing and really going after the life that I so wanted to live. A life of freedom, of fairness, and of being fair dinkum to who I really was and what I wanted to get out of this fleeting time that we have on Mother Earth. Fast forward to many lessons learned and moving halfway around the world to the most amazing country, you'll see the life that I now live. One that gives me more safety and freedom than I ever thought would be possible, and that really only existed as a daydream while I was living in South Africa. I created Chamonix TV to give you true spot advice on how you can also live a life in this amazing country, and so that you can see how another couple like us now live in Australia with 4 little kids hearing down under. And I'll be providing you with step-by-step strategies so that you can make your Aussie dream a reality too. If you're a keen future Aussie who's looking to create a life that excites you and offers you safety, freedom, and opportunity, you have come to the right place, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Hi, Shaun. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's really nice to see your smiley face on the other side of this big island that we have. How are you going there in Brisbane?
Really good, thank you. Really good. And you're in Perth, so it is a big place. It's an amazing country. It's quite a large country with so little people, but it's very good. Thank you.
It is. And when you guys moved over in 2011, did you say?
Yes, that's correct. 2011. My wife moved here in August 2011. I moved here in Jan 2012. We got our immigration basically in August, but then I sort of did a bit of a look-see, went back, so I'd sold some stuff back, and then came back in November, got a job, that was the process, and then went back to SA. My wife stayed here, and then we basically packed up and started selling off. I went back and sold everything off and finalized things, and then we moved to Australia. So she's been here since August 2011. I've been here since Jan 2012.
So she could apply for citizenship before you could.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Good. Yeah, we came on her visa actually. So she was the person who got headhunted. So yeah.
That's interesting. So tell me a bit more about that, if you don't mind. What was the visa category, guys, you came over, and what did she do?
So we came on a 457, which is obviously no longer a pathway to permanent residency, what I believe. But she came across. She's an internal auditor. So she works for one of the big 4 audit firms. She worked for KPMG in South Africa and was headhunted by Ernst & Young to come across. And she headhunted, and friends of ours now also who arrived the same day we arrived they came from Deloitte, and we both worked for EY. So we all came at the same time, fresh off the boat. So she got headhunted. We came in at 457, and we won that for two and a bit years, and then converted that to a PR 189, or I think what it's called, and now we have citizenship.
And what do you do?
So what I do now is very different to what I started, but I worked in recruitment, and I was actually doing mining recruitment. So that suited the time when we came across. Mining was still big in Australia. There was a lot of mining happening. So I was offered a role with a very large Dutch company called Randstad, as a senior consultant in their mining division that was starting up here in Australia and Brisbane. So I started here in Jan 2012. Yeah. And
what do you do now?
What do I do now? So I actually do 2 things. I do project management at the moment, but I work for Siemens in their mobility and rail division, and I work in the project management office, and I drive all the project improvement initiatives in the organization. So any new tools, software, processes, I run them like projects in the organization. From business case all the way through to handing across the business units and making sure they do their job properly.
That's very interesting. Why the big change from HR to this?
Yeah, well, this is the thing about Australia. There's just opportunity. If the South African in me, I suppose, just navigated the opportunities we had, and I think they were just. I started off in recruitment. I did it for a couple of years. Did it for 3 years. and I got over it. I sort of got tired of it, and I said I want to do something completely different. And someone I worked with at my company at Randstad actually poached me and said, "Listen, I got a role if you want it. It's all yours. It's completely different. It's in resourcing." So I went into resource planning, which was for Siemens in their power generation division, looking after all their trades. And I had like 250 or 300 trades that we onboarded and we casually ran as a workforce. So I went to that, and then from that, I then got headhunted from Mobility to do a resource management system and roll it out. And because I did really good at that, they were like, "Well, can you roll out some more systems?" And I had a bit of ability. So the role just grew. And before I knew it, like I said, in my Siemens base, because it's such an big organization, if you can show your ability and you can show your merit and you can build the right networks, you can go anywhere because it's such a massive organization.
It's a very important point that you raised about Australia, because we've seen it with so many South Africans who came as X and are now doing Y or Z. They've actually sometimes changed careers twice. And the same for me. I've changed careers probably about 5 times since I've moved to Australia. And I've studied a variety of things as well. But that's the thing. I see this is like the land of opportunities, because you're never too old to change careers. And you're always welcomed if you're having a go. And have you found that that's the same kind of spirit that you see from the Aussies?
There's 2 points I'd make about South Africans versus Australians. The first one would be we're wired a bit differently. I think Australians are happy to just have a job and just if they want to go, that you can earn enough money, I suppose, in Australia with a normal job. Whereas in South Africa you have to really excel to really make a lot of money. Whereas here you can earn dollars, you can earn a really good lifestyle. I mean, I know the average income, and it's really, really simple. But South Africans are wired a bit differently because of the way we grow up in that country. We actually we look for opportunity, we're looking for the angles, we're looking for the street. There's a bit more street smarts. So when you come into a country like this, like I have, I think that doesn't change, and so then you can see the gaps and you can see the opportunities, and I find that was one thing that the South African in me was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of even friends that I speak to like this, you see it a different way, whereas here they just they become a tradesman or they become a tradie, and they earn good money and they just stay out there for their whole life and they're happy. But I think we wired, I think because of the way that we have to deal with adversity in South Africa and be affirmative action, all that kind of stuff, we're always thinking about what happens if what's my other option, what's my other avenue. So I think you got a different way. But I feel here, because there's no affirmative action, there's none of that stuff. There's you can change careers, and a lot of people I know, like I speak to people who are teachers, come from East London, and she's like, you know what, I'm head of English for a really good private boys' school here, and I'm like, I want to do something completely different, and I'm like, and in South Africa, the recruiter in me is going, really, you want all that experience and all that wealth that you have, that people pay you for, you want to take a chance? But you can take a chance, and I think that's it's quite amazing. I don't know why I didn't see it in South Africa. I think the opportunity is massive here, and if you can build those relationships and networks, definitely I think you can exploit that.
Personally, I think one of the reasons that it is possible to take such a risk in a way to change your careers is because the public system or the government support is so good that if you do fall, it'll always catch you. Yeah. And then you can go back to what you used to do. Whereas I think in South Africa, if you fall, there's not that kind of support and you might end up on the street a bit easier. So maybe a bit more risky in South Africa.
100%. Like if you look at like this year, right? If you look at coronavirus, so in South Africa, we have a lot of family there. And so, we have families that are going under pressure with their jobs and people losing jobs and companies collapsing. And there's no backup. If you don't make money, like UIF in South Africa is not going to cut it to keep your lifestyle where it is. Here, there's job seekers that are throwing $2,000 a month. I mean, my sister-in-law just arrived, and she was unemployed on job seeker, earning $2,000 a month, until she found a job. And she found a job, which is great. But she walked off the boat and off the boat. She went off the airplane, and she basically, the system is built to look after you. You've really got to you have to either have mental health or drug issues or crime, or that's how far it's going to be before you can really fall down. And you're right, there's just so many different. I mean, as a parent, I mean, we look at there's like all these different services you can access for parenting. There's childcare subsidies. There's subsidies for days. You've actually got to really work the system, but there's so much support, and you are right, financially, incentives, tax benefits. There's a whole bunch of options that you just don't even see in SA. So no, 100% agree with that.
And you guys have a family now, like kids. You didn't obviously come with children, but now you have some. Do you mind sharing with us?
Yeah, of course. So the interesting thing with us was when we came to Australia, we actually didn't plan on staying. We were like those young, successful people that were just going to travel Australia, earn some dollars, maybe go see the rest of, in Asia. And we were here for 2 years, and then we were together. We weren't married. We were actually just, together as a couple. And we got engaged. And I think that's when the conversation changed for us in the brain. Our whole mindset changed, because when kids came into the whole thing, we were like, well, we're not going back to SA. This just wasn't even a thought for us. It was, we live in a cul-de-sac here in Brisbane. Kids are playing. We have friends. It was on the street drinking beers. In their camping chairs. On a Friday afternoon. It's a really good vibe, but it's a different thing. So we got married in 2014, and a couple of years later, 2017, we had our first, Luke, who's now 3, and then we had had Lauren last year. So we've got one of each, a boy and a girl. And yeah, we've been importing the grannies from SA for 3 months at a time, to come help us, because that's probably the downside, and I'm sure you'll get to that in the rest of the questions, but that's probably where we didn't really know. We didn't know how much we sort of knew that kids were hard work, but we didn't really get that. And I think that's one downside, but it's a sacrifice that we would make for our kids, because they will never have to worry about that. But we took that on, and we took on the chin, so to speak. So that they could have a better life, and that they are set for their lives and don't have to worry about it ever again, So,
and the other thing is they grow up. They're not that little forever. I know exactly. For you and me at this point, it feels like it's forever, because I'm in the same boat of you in terms of ages of kids. It's you think, when am I going to be able to sleep through the night? Just looking forward to that one night. But exactly. It goes past so quick.
It does.
The beauty is that once you're past that, you don't have to worry about your kids anyway in that regard, because they'll be safe, they'll be looked after, they'll be in a country where there's a proper health system, where there's a proper social system of support. Sure. And one of the things that are so great in Australia is you can go and study tertiary without being graded by your income. So your government loan isn't based on what you earn. Anybody can go and get a tertiary degree if they wanted to, and then repay it later on. So
when
that's right. Yeah, when they're able to, also when they earn enough, you don't have to start paying it back immediately. So, which brings me to another point. What is the best thing for you about Australia?
It's an obvious one, because we're South African. The security, I suppose, would be an interesting thing was we would, my wife and me, probably one of our only little gaps into our relationship, because of our weaknesses, was that we were in SA, we would argue, I don't want to go home, but like I want to, like she was like, I want to go home now. I'm like, no, I want to stay, at a bar, restaurant, where we were having a good time, and I wouldn't feel comfortable, letting her go. And it was quite amazing. We were fighting a few times, and from that point of view, it was quite interesting, because when we came here, it was like, okay, go, get in a taxi and go. And that was a weird thing for us to deal with, but like that, I don't have to worry. Like, she's like, I want to go for a run. Like, even we had a conversation tonight saying, do you think it's okay if I go for a run at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's dark? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because it's not South Africa, and we have to change our brains to that. And I think, like, I don't have to panic or worry. If she goes out with her girlfriends for dinner or whatever, I'm not like panicking when she's not home at a certain time. I'm not checking her location on Find Friends, like you don't worry, and she doesn't worry. We're not worried about that. And for our kids, there's no taxis. There's that stuff that kills me, the taxis. And then you go back to SA every now and then, and you really, it's quite hard, right? You go back and you have to switch back on. You have to get that alert level's got to, and it takes a few days for you to go, oh shit, it's my language, but like, oh my word, like you've actually like, oh my word, I'm on a traffic light, there's someone coming towards the car, what's going to happen now? And we've had, at our wedding, we actually had an issue where we were in Cape Town, which is a bit safer than Johannesburg, where we're from, and the car was broken into and smashed, and they, the day like before our wedding, don't need that stress on your wedding day. So, And I think the security is a big thing. And that's one thing that I think is the one thing. The other thing is the government system. Going to the Department of Transport Main Roads and getting a license was like going to, if you look at like, what do you call it, traffic department in South Africa versus this year, you go in there, it's like walking into a bank. And you're like, oh yes, get my driver's license. It's like walking to a bank, when in South Africa, you're like, oh, it's just,
queues for days.
Yeah. And you never know what you're going to get. And someone's like, oh, lunch break, sorry, hold on, like, no. So I think the whole thing is, for me, the system works. The power of the dollar to the traveling. There's so many things I could talk about, but security's got to be the one, because we don't worry about it anymore, and we don't have to worry about our kids. And that's something that you don't really, now I'm completely forgotten about. I'm not used to, but like that conversation tonight reminded me, when you're talking about her going for a run tomorrow morning when it's dark, it was, we were like, oh, can you, I'm like, it's Brisbane, it's Wakey, like, push can. Yeah.
In Brisbane, you don't even have to worry about coronavirus really either, because you guys have hardly any coronavirus. They're similar to WA. We have none. So,
exactly.
So that's really good.
And if you want to like take one thing from this year, from an Australian point of view, and I've got, my dad lives in Texas, in Dallas. So, I was actually considering going to the US, interesting story, but we were almost looking at it in the US, and we didn't. And I literally said no in December, and then my wife got headhunted in April to come to Australia. And I was like, okay, fine, let's try it out. It's a sign. We need to go. Yeah. So, and from a coronavirus point of view, look at the way that we've managed it. Look at the way that they manage the economy, and that's the thing. Like, it's not just about the government; it's about the economy. It's there's all the stuff that you have to worry about, and I think that's like the way that they've handled it. We've got it. I mean, we have a bit of a joke about the prime minister being fired every now and then, but from a country point of view, you can't be more happier than, you wouldn't want to be anywhere in the world but Australia right now with coronavirus. Yeah, and they've just nailed it. Unless you're in Melbourne, but the rest, you would honestly love it. And I think, that's one thing. We've been sitting here. We've got friends in London, Sweden, in the US, and we've had Zoom calls with all these friends, and they're like, "How the hell have you guys done this? How have you done this in Australia?" And we're like, "We've done it really well. We just lock the island down, lock it down."
Yeah,
And do it
there
properly.
are some advantages of being far away from everybody and everything.
True, exactly right. So,
and tell me, what's the flip side? What's the worst thing for you about Australia, or something that annoys you the most?
The worst thing's the family, without a doubt. It's not an annoying thing, but the worst thing is the small children. That's the thing. You can't just drop the kids at your granny, grandpa, Omar. You can't just drop them off. And I think that's where you feel the pain a bit. So you need to just figure out. But I think what you do is we've built friends that are basically like family, and you just lean on those friends. And they're all in the same boat. They've all got small children. They're all done a family. We've got Megan's sister now here, so that's really positive. They're all went to Townsville. Different story, but anyway. But that's the point is that that's the hardest thing, and I only felt that after we didn't feel that until we had kids, right? So in terms of annoyance, I'd say maybe the most annoying thing is probably it's probably a bit, it's very regulated, right? But I think and very complicated in terms of, like, if you want to access subsidies and systems and grants, you have to go through, it's quite a bit of a process to go through, and it's probably there for a reason, but there's a lot of red tape and a lot of process, which is from coming from South Africa, it's the other extreme, right? So you have to adjust.
Yeah, well, it's one of the best things, but it's also one of the worst things. So
exactly, exactly.
You've got to decide whether you want your bread buttered on all six sides. You can't have everything.
Exactly, right. And you can't have, and that's from an annoying point of view, that's probably, like I said, it's not really, it's like, I wouldn't even really worry about that when it comes to, it's more down to the family thing. I think any South African would say that, especially, that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah. If you could do it over again, would you?
I would have done it younger. We would have come earlier. Because I think we had no idea, right? And I said this, so trying to speak to my sister, right, and saying to her, "You're young, you think you're bulletproof, you think that life's just, life is so amazing in South Africa." And it is. If you've got money in South Africa right now, it is amazing. You can party it up, you can live it up. You don't got kids and family to worry about. You can live your best life, so to speak. But I would have loved to come earlier because of the earning dollars, because it's expensive, right? And that's probably another thing to feed into. But you need money, so you need to build that wealth and house deposits and that kind of stuff. So I think that's probably one thing that I would love to come earlier. to earn more dollars and get myself set up faster. But you know, that's probably the only thing I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the younger you are when you come over, the better. It's just in so many aspects. Thank you so much for having a chat with us, Shaun. I really appreciate you taking the time. There will definitely be people that will associate with what you've said, and they'll go, yep, if they could do it, surely then we can also have a go. What would you say to people thinking of coming over? Do you think they should try to come, or what would you say?
I would say that if you are thinking about it, I would really take a hard look and really make a decision either way. You know, we've got friends who have sat on the fence and then just assume they can get into Australia and then left it too long and then suddenly they weren't the skills list anymore. So I'd say if you are thinking about it, if you've got young family, it's a no-brainer, because whether you think it now or in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, eventually it's going to be too late. You're going to want to move eventually, and you just want to move as sooner you can get the younger the kids are, before get yourself set up in Australia sooner rather than later. It helps with the financial point of view. You just get built up better. So I think if you're on the fence and you're not sure, just think about if you're gonna have kids, that's the big one. That's an easy one. And then just think financially. You know, the sooner you get, the more money you can earn, and if that drives you, if you're driven by career and that kind of stuff, I'd say I really would think about it. And I'd say it's unfortunately, as sad as it is about, you know, to say that from a South African point of view, it's reality, and I think you've just got to think what you own to yourself at the moment. Absolutely. Great words of advice. Appreciate that. No problem. All good. And thank you for spending your time. No problem. All good. And like I said, anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me. But otherwise, definitely. Thank you. That's all good. Appreciate it. Have a lovely evening in Brisbane, and we'll catch you soon again. Definitely. Thanks so much. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. Goodbye, Shaun. All right. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you had fun, please remember to hit that subscribe button, and then it'll make sure that you never miss a thing. I'll see you same time and same place next week. Bye for now.